Finished doing all the potentially embarrassing things I didn't want to be caught doing on stream, although it feels like a sneeze still may be coming on. So if that happens, we're just going to deal with it and move through it. First of all, I want to ask, can you hear me? Is everything working all right? Go ahead and say that. And if no one says anything, I'm going to start to worry. I'm going to begin today slightly differently. I want to use something that I found from the core protocols. And I'll talk more about what those are at some other point. But as a first check-in, I want to say, okay, am I coming? There we go. As a first check-in, I want to say I feel hopeful. I feel positive because I am moving forward with this, with a number of other things. And so that makes me happy. Okay, some people saying it's working great. Facebook is. YouTube may not be. Let me check it one more time. Apologies for the... Oh, well, that link is not working. All right, well then... Okay, use this link. We'll go back to the previous one. This is the true link. Still figuring it out. Okay, there we go. Now we've got another link that will actually work. I'm not sure why it didn't jump in on that one. I'll have to try and figure that out later. But good. Now we're good. Now we should be good. All right. Okay, here we are. All right. So now the stream should be working on both YouTube and Facebook. Welcome, everyone. Great to have you here. Great to have you here, Daniela. Some of us have gotten up at 3 in the morning for this, and I'm very happy to see you here. And others of us have all sorts of time differences and delays. This is a very remote thing. This is a very new flu type of way to do things. And I hope it is useful and hearable and enjoyable by you. So, back to my check-in. I'm going to offer a check-in, and that is I'm feeling hopeful and excited because of this and other things that I am doing to meet my goals and move forward and share and have more fun in 2022. I was with my friend last night, or recently, and I was talking to him about what we felt the future holds, and he says, you know, I think we should just have fun. And I think that's exactly it. And I'm going to talk more about fun and pleasure today, two of my favorite topics. And they're deeply connected to actually some of the most spiritual things that I can talk about. I believe the abundant life is connected to fun, is connected to pleasure. And yeah, it's a battle. It's been a battle getting there, finding it, enjoying it. But yeah, I'm feeling hopeful right now. So I'm going to invite you, if you wish, to go ahead and put into the chat. First of all, welcome, everyone. And say how you're feeling and why. In just a sentence. I'm feeling X because Y. That's it. So go ahead and put that in there. We're not going to comment on it. We're not going to dive into it. But just to be aware, first of all. Okay. So after that, I want to explain briefly what a satsang is for those of us who do not speak Sanskrit or not familiar with Hindu ways or Buddhist ways. Satsang is an opportunity to come together as, let's say, seekers, as believers, as those who are looking for that pleasure, that light and truth, and strength in one another. So that's why we're here today, tonight. And I'm going to do my best to make sure that happens. It's getting a little better every time. We're figuring more technical stuff out every week. And hopefully we'll be able to add music and other elements in at some point. But yeah, that's what a satsang is. And we'd like to start with a meditation. So I'm going to go ahead and lead a meditation. And if you'd like to find a comfortable spot to sit or lie down, either one, with your eyes closed. And begin to focus on your breathing, noticing your breathing, something that almost like a heartbeat happens. hundreds of times every day, and yet you don't consciously notice it. We seldom pay attention to our breathing and our breath. We don't notice as the oxygen flows into our bodies and the air comes out of our bodies again. But right now I want us to focus on breath, on breathing. And perhaps as you do that, you notice your inherent ecstatic state that is just in the joy of the spirit experiencing the breath in the body. That most subtle of subtle movements of energy and air coming in, of energy and air going out. Breathing in everything that is useful to you, both literally and metaphorically. And releasing anything you want to let go of with each breath. Breathing in and breathing out. And bringing your awareness to the flow as if you could see ripples of air flowing through like tiny eddies of currents in a stream down into your lungs and then flowing out again. And perhaps you've noticed your breathing become a little bit more relaxed by observation. Perhaps you notice and feel that your breathing becomes slightly deeper in this process. Of simply observing it. Perhaps you notice that your breath flows into more places in your body, that it reaches a deeper area of your lungs, or you may even have the feeling that your breath is filling your belly and not just your chest with each breath. And you may feel it in other places as well. As you breathe in, noticing the effect that each breath has on your body. You may feel it in your abdomen or your legs. You may feel an expansion. Or you may notice it somewhere else. Noticing coolness on your mouth or your nose, perhaps, with the in-breath, and then warmth on the out-breath. Feeling expansion and contraction. Noticing your relaxation right now. And where it stands. And feeling your entire body. Noticing where you're relaxed. Where the tension has departed. And where there might still be tension. Relaxing further down now. And allowing those places that were tight or tense to let go and relax. Just letting the breath carry the tension out with itself. Realizing that you have access to relaxation whenever you want, whenever you wish. Simply by sitting and observing your breath. By noticing all its elements. By noticing all its components. And what happens at each moment in each part of the breath. As that wave comes in and out. With each breath. Taking the opportunity to remember this relaxation for the next time you need it. That you'll be able to call it up. And then letting go. Allowing yourself to focus again on the room that you're in, letting your eyes open. Noticing your body. All right. Welcome back. Thank you for expressing how you felt previously, and in one word, maximum 3, describe how you feel after that experience, please. There's my words. Good, thank you. There will be some delay, so I'm not going to worry about that too much. So, with that said, I want to dive into a couple ideas that I had about the wheat and the tares. First of all, I want to ask the question, who did Bach compose for? Who did Beethoven write his music for? Who did Brahms write his music for? Who did all the classical composers write their great music for? Thank you. If you think about back then, there weren't that many people who could access any of this. And now we're all able to listen to the great masters of the past. Whether it's read the books that were written in the past, or listen to the music, or visit places, watch, first of all, photos and videos of places, but you can even go to places physically in virtual reality and see them in 3D now without having to leave your home. We have all these technologies. We have all these abilities to get to different places, to experience things that were formerly reserved for the rich and those who are able to access them somehow, or those who are local. And so with that question in mind, what about the Bible? Who was the Bible written for? And who was the New Testament written for? If you go back in history, who did those who had the New Testament, or the people of the New Testament, what did they have? They had a series of books written by various people with no connection among them, and they didn't know who wrote this book or this letter or not. Was it legitimate or not? Someone told me about Jesus or about the miracles or about the resurrection, and he was told by somebody else, he was told by somebody else, and we're all where we are in society, and we're getting these messages, and we have maybe some sort of access to records eventually, although it took years and years for these things to be written, according to historians. But most people didn't have much of it. And then if you remember, we had this entire Dark Age period where the biblical record was taken and owned by the church. Once the Catholic Church was fully formed, they had the Bible in Latin, translated into Latin from Greek, and of course the common people didn't speak Latin. And they weren't allowed to own Bibles even if so. And copying a Bible was an incredibly expensive, difficult endeavor. And so whatever was written in the Bible for hundreds, if not almost 1,000 years, most of it was completely inaccessible to everyone. 1460 was when the first Bible was printed, and 1466 was when the first Bible was printed in German. And the English Bibles came after that. So we're talking maximum 500 years that there's been Bibles around. So if you're thinking about everything that you find in the New Testament and in the Gospels, and thinking, oh, well, who's this meant for? And, oh, people thought it was always for them. Well, you have to realize they didn't have access to it, let's say, until actually broadly based 1700, 1800, even at that time, 1700s, 1800s, printed work was expensive. If you had a Bible, you had a family Bible, one for everybody in the family, right? You probably didn't have one for every single member of the family. It was difficult technologically. There were different versions. Many people were burned, killed, trying to bring the Bible out from both the English side and the Catholic side. I mean, there was tons of persecution. The church did not want the Bible out. And then when Martin Luther found the Bible, he said, hey, well, maybe we need to reform the church a little bit because you're doing a bunch of things that actually don't match with the Bible. And that's precisely why the Bible was hidden from the people, so that the church could tell the people whatever they wanted, and they had no possibility of confirming it with themselves or checking, because, hey, that's the Pope, those are the priests, they can read Latin, I can't, so they must know what God wants, and I don't. And so that ignorance, that lack of knowledge, through lack of knowledge, my people perish, right? So that technology comes along, and now 19th century, you can print more, and now I just go onto a website and I have 30 translations of the Bible that discuss it from every possible direction. And another fascinating, well, I'll get there. But so there's all these translations available now. The point is, perhaps this wasn't written for people 100 or 1,000 years ago. Perhaps it was written for us right now because we're the ones reading it. We have access to it. That said, I did a research before I actually got on here, and I asked how many people read the Bible at all, or how many people read the scriptures. And the answer that I found was somewhere between 10 and 20% have any sort of daily study. And that's going to be wildly different because it said 10 to 20% of Americans. Okay, so that may be 30 million. Then maybe other people, other religions, I don't know what their study practices are or what that is. But even though we have all this access now, even though we're connected, how many people are actually studying any works, any ancient spiritual works that are supposed to help them move forward? And the answer is vanishingly few. So who is actually reading? Who is looking for more light and knowledge? Probably the people that are suffering. Probably the people whose lives are not so enjoyable. Probably the people who are not having fun, and you get to kind of a last-ditch effort of, well, maybe I could try this. And then you try that and hope that this is going to help. Some sort of a deeper spiritual journey. So I say that because, first of all, when we talked about the 10 virgins who ended up becoming the 10 young women, the translation we were using yesterday, or last week, talks about those who I think are in the category of those who are taking seriously prophecy, planning, teachings of Jesus, similar prophecies, and so that they feel, okay, I'm taken care of, I'm handled, I've got it. A lot of people say I'm saved, whatever that means. And with that in mind, I want to talk about oh, yes, and the majority of those reading, according to my researches, they're over 70 years old. So, yeah, there's not a ton of people actually searching for more light and knowledge in this way, and I'm not saying it's the only way to do it, but it is one indicator of where things are going. So with that said, I want to look at Matthew 13, and I've got the Matthew 13 Common English Version in front of me, and I will go ahead and send it to you if you would like to see it. So there you go. And if you don't like the Common English Version, then you can click anywhere there and it will open up a new translation anywhere on the top. It says NIV, NLT, ESV, BSB. If you click any of those, you're going to have a new translation. And there's KJV if you're more comfortable with the King James Bible, etc. So anyway, we have something interesting in Matthew 13. We have Jesus talking. He has the parable of the seeds, which I'm going to skip, which is in verses 1 through 22. And then the weeds among the wheat, or the wheat and the tares, is how I heard about it when I was a kid, even though I'd never heard the word tares in any other context, and I didn't know what tares were, but I kind of got it after it was explained to me. But I like the Common English Version because why do we need to use the word tares when we can just say wheat and everybody knows what's going on? Okay, so there's wheat and the tares. Yeah, okay. I don't know if the chat is coming in Facebook. Let me know if it is. All right, so there's the wheat and the tares. And I'm just going to go ahead and read some of that. Jesus told them this story. The kingdom of heaven is like what happened when a farmer scattered good seed in a field. But while everyone was sleeping, an enemy came and scattered weed seeds in the field and then left. All right. When the plants came up and began to mature, the farmer's servants could see the weeds. The servants came and asked, "Sir, didn't you scatter good seed in the field?" Oh, by the way, if you can't see the comments in Facebook, you can see them in YouTube. But I can't send you the YouTube link because I can send it to you in, I'll send it to you in Telegram. So there we go. So you can see my comments here if you watch this version. Okay. That's, or at least I see it. So let me know if that works. So for some reason, they're not coming in Facebook, but they are coming in YouTube. Okay. Back to what we were reading. Weed seeds in a field and left, which seems very unkind. When the plants came up and began to mature, the farmer's servants could see the weeds. The servants came and asked, "Sir, didn't you scatter good seed in your field? Where did these weeds come from?" "An enemy did this," he replied. His servants then asked, "Do you want us to go out and pull up the weeds?" "No," he answered. "You might also pull up the wheat. Leave the weeds alone until harvest time. Then I'll tell my workers to gather the weeds and tie them up and burn them, but I'll order them to store the wheat in my barn." So we're going to get to the translation, and I'm going to talk about that, or the explanation. But first I want to say, we feel like the servants right now. We are saying, hey, shouldn't we go pull out the weeds? And this is the fascinating thing here, and we'll get into it with the explanation. We're the ones who are working for the divine, working for God, trying to create beauty, trying to create life in the world, and we see bad stuff happening. And then we say to God, do you want me to go fix that? Do you want me to handle that? Do you want me to take care of it? Right? And I think we've all had these dreams or fantasies or desires saying, how do we get rid of the evil in the world? How do we fix it? How do we handle it? You know, what do we need to do? And the answer is, in a lot of cases, we don't. We're not the ones who are going to be doing the final transformation and cleansing and healing of things. It's interesting because he says the servants asked this, and he says, but I will go tell the workers. So the workers and the servants are two different groups of people, right? They're not the same. And then the mustard seed happens, and then the reason for teaching with stories. And then verse 36, he explains this story. And after Jesus left the crowd and went inside, his disciples came to him and said, so he always has these two groups. He always has the crowd, the people that are in the crowd listening, watching, whatever. And then he has the non-crowd, meaning his disciples, meaning the people that follow him, right? So the crowd completely misses the stories, misses the reason for the stories. They just hear the stories. And then they go on and do their thing. And then the disciples show up, and then they ask, well, what did that mean? What was that about? And then Jesus explains it all. So his disciple, and the interesting thing is this happens twice in Matthew 13, and it's fascinating because it's exactly explained, which very few other holy works do. They don't have the guy explaining the thing, and then he explains why he explained the thing or what it meant. That explanation, I think, is rare in the Bible or anywhere. So there it is. So they came to him and said, explain to us the story about the weeds in the wheat field. Jesus answered, the one who scattered the good seed is the Son of Man. And because we're who we are today, I think I want to dive deeper into that and explain it. The field is the world, and the good seeds of the people belong to the kingdom. So the Son of Man is the grandson of God, or the grandson of the Son of God. What does that mean? No, the grandson of God, or the Son of Man. So, in other words, God creates man in his image, whatever that means. And then man lives and develops, and what comes after man reaches his top development is the Son of Man. So people use Jesus, and they said the Son of Man. So because you think, well, isn't the Son of God better than the Son of Man? No, the Son of Man is the second level of development. The Son of God is the first level of development, right? Son of God comes down to earth, innocent, Adam knowing nothing, and then he goes through the path and learns everything, and then the thing that is produced by that becomes its son. So the Son of Man is the production, the kind of human, so to speak, that exists after man goes through its development, or his development. So when Jesus showed up and said, I'm the Son of Man, what he's saying is, once you're finished, once you've gone through your development as a human and you've gotten to the next level, then you're the Son of Man. You're the production of what happens from man, which may be clear, maybe not. If not, don't worry about it. But that's what he said. The good seed is the Son of Man. So in other words, those at least Jesus, but perhaps including those who are preaching and able to provide light and knowledge and wisdom. That's the Son of Man. So the field is the world, and the good seeds are people who belong to the kingdom. All right. The weeds are those who belong to the evil one, and the one who scattered them is the devil. Clear enough. The harvest is the end of time, and the angels are the ones who bring in the harvest. So right, so the angels are the ones who bring in the harvest, not those who belong to the kingdom, right? Weeds are gathered and burned. That's how it will be at the end of time. The Son of Man will send out his angels, and they will gather from his kingdom everyone who does wrong or causes others to sin. Then he will throw them into a flaming furnace, while people will cry and grit their teeth in pain. But everyone who has done right will shine like the sun in their Father's kingdom. If you have ears, pay attention. All right. The end of time. So what is time? Time can be two things. Number one, the age. And the idea is when Jesus came and said, this is the beginning of an age, an eon, a time. It's a space and a structure of time, saying, okay, the world is like this right now. You've heard of the end of Aquarius, or the age of Aquarius, or the Kali Yuga. All those things are indications about time and how time works. Therefore, when Jesus shows up and says, I'm here till the end of the age, or I'm with you till the end of the age, what he means is there's a bow of time happening, and you can consider that from the creation to the destruction of a particular empire or group of people or series of time. If we look at sites in Egypt or America or China now, we can see that there were entirely different civilizations built up that don't exist anymore. Technologies that we don't understand, construction methods that we can no longer follow or do, temples that we don't understand who the gods are or where they came from. And so they each had their own age, right? Here's your age. They do their thing. They rise, they fall, and then a new age starts and a new age begins. The new age, probably starting with a small remnant of those who existed in the previous age, who may or may not quickly forget what the previous age had happened, and therefore are able to start anew to create the new one. Just like humans birth, get old, die, and, let's say, perhaps resurrect or reincarnate and come back and do it again, so do civilizations, so do nations, right? They rise, they expand, they pop, they collapse, and then we restart certain areas of history. And according to the Hindu legends, these things go in cycles of thousands and then tens of thousands of years. And so when Jesus comes and says, here's an age, and here we go, and I'm starting the age, when he starts talking about the last days, he's talking about what is actually, from the time he shows up. He says, okay, we're going to start changing things now. I'm going to mark it now. We're counting the years from that point, theoretically, right? So this is the new age. This is how it's going to be. And then I'm going to give you a bunch of instructions, and you're going to implement these instructions. And then when you do, we're ready for the next stage. So all the things that Jesus said, which, again, let's say they were absolutely prohibited and buried for 500 years. And then the world has spent 300 or 400 years trying to deny them and run from them and not understand them and attack them and continue doing the old ways. And then let's say a small percentage of people now, after almost, well, if you believe from flamenco, 1,000 years, but let's say centuries, if not millennia, we have people actually looking at them, taking them seriously, and seeking to apply them. And you see little spurts and explosions where people tried to do that in the past. Religious revivals and psychological shifts. You see the 70s as the last big one, where everyone was saying, make love, not war. How do we just have pleasure? How do we get away from all this fighting? And then that was sort of squished and collapsed. And then we had another 20, 30 years of sort of business as usual, which serves, as he said, which is the wheat and the tares growing up in their different speeds. And now we're to another time where, okay, we're going to look at all of this again and consider, can we live this? Do we want to live this? Do we want to have a new path of peace? And the other thought that I had in there when I was saying that is, yeah, so we see things are bad and we want to change things. And he says, no, wait until it's ripe, until it's mature, because that's how these processes go. If you have people going in this way and people going this way, then when they first start out, at 2 years old, at 4 years old, everyone is the same level of good and evil, more or less. At 40 years old, 60 years old, 80 years old, people have chosen their paths, and they can be in dramatically different places, right? So he says, we're going to allow this to ripen, and even a family will continue to go in one direction, right? Unless a black sheep or a white sheep, as one person here claims herself to be, goes back and changes what's happening in the family. But generally, we have cities, nations, countries, families, communities, and they're all going in one direction, and it's either positive or negative. It's either progressive or going backwards. And only when they get to their apex, only when they get to their furthest level, does the reset happen. And the thing that's happened in the last couple of years is a dramatic speed up of that reset, of that process. We thought things were going along, and we see people who are dramatically doing and believing things differently than we do, and we see right and wrong and good and bad be completely mixed up and confused. And we have these organizations that we thought were good that we find out are actually doing very evil things, and people within them are doing very evil things, and they're protected by these organizations. And then it becomes clear, oh, okay, here's good, here's evil. And once that gets figured out, once we see that, and once the evil reaches its complete ripeness and its apex, then reset button, shift, go back to the beginning, right? And that's what these instructions are for. These instructions are for people watching this and saying, hey, this doesn't make sense. Look at all the evil people, and they're living right next door to the good people, and they're doing bad things, and they're moving things in negative directions. And God, or Jesus, is saying here, yeah, I see it, I get it. I see the chaos that's going on. I see the violence that's going on. I see the hate and the anger and all of these horrific things. And when they get to the point where I'm ready, then we're going to clear the slate and start over again, or create a new world, right? And then that new world starts. So this is the stuff that's being talked about in Revelation, the process of that, and personally and communally. And this is what is being spoken of in this chapter. Let me finish the last little bit. Gather and causes others to sin. Then he will throw them into a flaming furnace where people will cry and grit their teeth in pain. What is a flaming furnace? Let's think about that. Flaming furnace, fire is transformative power, and it changes things from one thing to another. So flaming furnace, we talk about the refiner's fire, right? The flaming furnace is, okay, well then they're going to need to be transformed. To be transformed, they're going to need to suffer, right? If you have a child who is doing bad things, and maybe they're using drugs in an inappropriate way, maybe they're stealing, maybe they're whatever, they're going to have to get to a place of what we call rock bottom and suffering, and to say, oh my goodness, I was at that place, and now I have to change, and I have to suffer to see the error of my ways and decide to suffer, right? So that's the flaming furnace. The flaming furnace is, okay, things get harder and harder and harder for you until you realize where you're at is a place of suffering instead of pleasure, instead of enjoyment, instead of fun, instead of the abundant life. We're going to give you the opportunity to suffer so that you can get back on track for your growth and your development and your happiness. And that's what that's about, right? So they're going to cry and grit their teeth in pain. Why? Those of us who have cried and or had such severe pain that we've grit our teeth understand, and this happens to all of us, right? That we needed to change something, shift something was being released, we were being transformed, and that's that fire doing that transforming. But everyone who has done right will shine like the sun in their Father's kingdom. Again, fascinating. If you have ears, pay attention, which is cute. If you have ears, he that hath ears, let him hear. If you have ears, pay attention. And this is said a couple times by Jesus. It's interesting when he says pay attention. When he says pay attention, he's meaning look at all the details here. And in their Father's kingdom, my Father, and your Father. My God and your God. Does that make sense? When Jesus was talking to Thomas, he says, I'm going to go to my Father and your Father, to my God and your God, right? And he's what are they talking about? Why doesn't he just say, I'm going to God, I'm going to the Father? And this is exactly that. Their Father's kingdom. Their Father has a design for how the kingdom is supposed to be. And so they're going to go to their Father's kingdom, right? They're going to live things according to the divine heavenly plan for them as a specific individual on the earth, their own kingdom, right? So he doesn't say shine like the sun in my Father's kingdom or in God's kingdom. No, in their Father's kingdom, all right? This is scripture teaching 707 or something. This is pretty deep. But yeah, apparently that's what's supposed to come out. Okay. So questions, commentary on this. It went, I think, to interesting places. I will give you a moment to catch up in the video so that if you do have a comment, you can put it in. But to summarize, this is where we're at right now, in my humble estimation. We're going to the place where the division is taking place, where you can see there are people who don't believe fundamental things like, what is a man? Hi, Karen, welcome. Good to see you. What is a man? What is a woman? It's recorded. You'll be able to watch it later. There are people who are disagreeing about murder and killing and who it's okay to kill. There's disagreement on all these basic constructs. So the fact is there's a pretty ripe place where we're at where some are embracing solutions that involve taking away others' agency. And others are looking to improve themselves and transform themselves and make progress themselves. So that's where we are, and that's what he's talking about, and that was Parable of the Wheat and the Tares. Oh, okay, thank you, Allison. All right, any other questions, any other comments? Well, yes, thank you, Daniela. All right. So, if there's nothing else, then, okay, some energy is moving. Let me breathe. Let me cough. I will mute it so I don't destroy it. Oh, yes. Let me invite you to do one more thing because we're a little intimate family. Say what you need or want right now. So I'm going to say discipline to write plus financial security. Boom. Anything that you can think of right now that you want and or need, state that before we finish. Just put that out into the space. We said how you felt to start out. Now tell us what you may need or want. Okay? And we're just going to include that here. If you wish. You don't have to. And I'm going to breathe into that. Bless you. Absolutely, Allison. Yes. Good. I'm glad you were here. Thank you for coming. Gather your questions for next time. Otherwise, we just continue. And have a blessed week. Namaskar, namaste, and amen.